Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about primitive data types. But before we get started, if you are new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, everyone. So to get started in today's episode, the first thing that I need you to have open is all the tools we're going to be using. We're going to be using the same website that we've been coding so far. Make sure to open the console. If you don't know how to do that, take a look at my previous chapter. I explained the console in there. Also, I open MDN, and in this chapter, we're going to be taking a look at w3schools.com as well. So if you go to w3schools.com, just go into the JavaScript section and then jump right into JS data types right there. And here are the JavaScript data types that you are going to be able to see. So the first thing that you need to know is why data type is important, right? Why are you going to be using data types, and what are they? I mean, what would you use them? So in programming, let's read here a little bit. Data types are very important, right? And they are going to be able to help you operate on variables. And I am going to discuss variables, by the way, later on in this course. Okay, so don't worry about them just yet. So it is important to know what are the data types that you're going to be taking a look at, and pretty much how you can use them into our website, right? So yesterday, when we were taking a look at the console, remember I was setting up some information into our code. If you go back to our code, we put something here in the console like hello world, and then we did some operations there which return a value here in the browser itself, here, right? Hello world, and then the number 17. So this hello world, the word, and this number, this is what we call data types. Now, today, we're going to be discussing only primitive data types because there are a whole bunch of data types. But since you are beginning with JavaScript, the first thing that you need to know is how primitive, or what primitive data types are. So if you go back to W3 schools, you will see in the head section that there are 8 data types. So these are the ones known as primitive types. The first one is a string. The second one is a number. Big int, boolean, undefined, null, symbol, and object. But object is a more complex and advanced data type. And in this chapter, I'm going to cover string, number. We're going to be taking a look at what a boolean is, what is an undefined, and null. Okay, symbols, big int, and object data types. This one's right here. We're going to leave it for the next episodes. Okay. Because these are more complex and you need to know a little bit more of variables and how probably to make functions and other stuff that I will explain later on. So let's get started with the first primitive type. This is what we call primitive type: the string, a number, big int, boolean, undefined, null, symbol. Those are the primitive data types. Just remember that, okay? Now, what is a string? A string, the best and easiest way to explain you what a string is a text. So if we go back to our code, you remember yesterday when we type in console.log hello world, then we went back to the console and it returned hello world. Well, that's what it's considered a string. Now, let me open a website right here. Let's go to Yelp, okay? If I go to Yelp, and if you take a look and see here, let me just scroll a little bit down here. Okay, so in Yelp, we have different type of data just in this website right here. You see this, let's say as an example, this sort of data. Let's get into this location, right? In this restaurant. So this one is called Citizen Pizza. Okay, so just this piece of information right here, this is a string because this is text. Okay, you see, is this your business? Verify to immediate, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's a string as well. This is a string as well. All chunk of text that you know as text in the real world, in JavaScript, it's called a string. Okay, So anything that you type in on JavaScript as text will be considered a string. Now, a string should have always columns at the beginning and at the end. Okay, just remember that. So if I want to, let's go back to our website and I want to create a string, it's very simple. I can use console.log and let's reflect the string. I put the quotes, and then inside of those quotes, I can type in whatever, and then the console is going to return this information as text, plain text. Okay, so I can go ahead and I can say this is a string. Okay, and let's save this, and going back to our code, let's refresh. And you see, this is a string. It returns a word to me. Now, if I do not wrap it up in columns, take a look and see what's going to happen. If I just type in here, this is a string without columns. See, first and foremost, the color changes in Visual Studio Code. And now if I hit save and I go back to my code and I hit refresh, it gives me an error because it says this is not valid, right? So why is that? This is because in JavaScript, if you do not wrap your text in quotes, then that's not considered a string for JavaScript. So just make sure that you wrap it up in between columns, in between quotes. I'm sorry. Just wrap it up in between quotes and you will see how that will convert into text. So if I hit save now and I hit refresh, see, now it goes back to this is a string again. So I hope it's clear, but that's exactly what a string is. So that's the first one. That's what a string is. Now let's go to and take a look at another data type. Let's take a look at number in here. Okay, so number, playing it simple in JavaScript, there's simply nothing more simple as number, because a number is a number. Simple as that. Okay, so 1 is a number, 2 is a number. It could be 2.1 is a number. So it could either be a decimal number or it could be a regular number. Okay, whatever the case might be, you can go ahead and you can just input that. So I can go ahead and I can say console.log, and then in parentheses I can put the number 78. I don't have to add quotes around it, because if I add quotes around it, then it'll be a number inside quotes. It's a string, so that'll be represented like a portion of text, not a number. So the numbers don't need to have quotes around it, and you can simply say console.log 78, and I can hit save. I go back to my code, hit refresh, and then it'll give me the number 78. I can do console.log, and I can put 8.76. And again, you know, I mean, the console will display the number. So if I can hit save and I can hit refresh, and there you go. So now you have another number here. So numbers are also very important in JavaScript, because if you go, let's go back to Yelp. If we use numbers in, let's say as an example, the review of this pizza. You see this pizza has 5 stars. That probably is a number coded into JavaScript, a number from 1 to 5. How was the pizza? So the pizza was maybe 3 or 5 or 1, whatever the case might be. So that's why you would use numbers inside of a website. And not only for that, but for more other reasons. But I'm just giving you an example of the type of information that you will find in here. Now, I hope that's clear. But I mean, if you have questions about strings or numbers, remember, you can leave them in the comment section below and I'll reply as soon as I can. Let's take a look at another data type. The third one that I can explain here is Boolean. I'm not going to go over big int, nor symbol, nor objects right now, because you need to know a little bit more of advanced JavaScript so that you don't get confused right now with those, okay? So let's talk about the Boolean. What is a Boolean? Okay, so in JavaScript, a Boolean is it's a data type that will represent if a value is either true or false, right? So that's what a Boolean is. If you go to this website and let's say that you want to log in, right? If you want to log in, and let's say that you type in here your email, and then you type in a password, and you hit login. Well, as soon as I hit login, it gives me an error, and it says, please include the @ in the email address, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so when you get that error, that's probably because this, in order to code this portion, there is a Boolean data type in there saying if the password is true, then let him in. If the password is wrong or if it's false, then don't let him in and display this error. So that's what a Boolean is in JavaScript. Now, I hope that makes sense, but you can represent a Boolean like this. I mean, I can simply do console.log and then I can say true. Okay, and I hit save, going back to my document, hit refresh, and it'll return true. And I don't have to wrap this up in quotes because this is not a string. This is just the value of true. Same thing you can do with false. You can do console.log and then input inside false. Okay, and then it's going to return the value of false. If I hit save, hit refresh, you see it returns the value of false. You will see that this is very useful when we are taking a look at if statements, but I'm not going to get into that just yet. Just letting you know how Booleans work. So a Boolean is either a true or false value that is assigned to something in JavaScript, typically a variable. Okay, so this is the Boolean. Now you can also, let me show you another example of a Boolean. So if I hit console.log and I say that 8 is, let's say that 8 is greater than 10. Okay, and I hit save, going back to our code, let's hit refresh. Then it returns false, right? Because 8 is not greater than 10, so that's false. So see, that's what a Boolean is. If you have questions about Booleans, again, just leave them in the comment section below, okay? So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the last two primitive data types, which are undefined, and then the other one, which will be null, because we're not going to cover symbol, bigint, nor object in this chapter. Okay, so let's go with undefined. Now, since we haven't taken a look at variables just yet, this undefined value is going to be something that I will explain a little bit more when we're taking a look at variables. However, just so you know, whenever we give a value to a variable in JavaScript, or let's say that we give a value to something, let's say that we want to say, I don't know, the table is yellow, right? If I say the table is yellow, then I am assigning a value to something. Now, if I only say the table and I don't give a value to the table, then that will be considered an undefined data type because I'm not assigning a value to the table. So I could say the table is green, the table is blue, right? Now, if I say that the table, if I just say the table and I don't give it a color, then JavaScript is going to return, the console will return undefined on your code when you haven't assigned a type of data to your to a variable, let's say as an example. So we can go ahead and write in our code something like this: console.log, and then in parentheses we can select undefined. Okay, now I hit save, going back to our code, let's hit refresh, and boom, it'll return undefined. Now this is not a string because I didn't wrap it up in quotes. This is just an undefined value that you will see in certain cases. When you're coding something, and let's say we typically have to assign a data type to a variable. So if a variable doesn't have a data type assigned, then it'll return an undefined value because it'll say you have not defined the value of this variable. So then you have to define it, okay? So then you're probably going to get the undefined message on the console. So that's just simply something for you to know right now. But when we take a look at variables, this will be a little bit more clear for you. Right now, I just want you to understand that undefined is a primitive type and that you will be able to see undefined messages sometimes in the console, okay, when we have not assigned a variable a data type, okay? So moving on, the next one will be console.log null. Okay, null, it means nothing. Okay, so if I hit save and I hit refresh, I will get null, and I don't have to wrap it up in quotes to be a string because it's just a null value. Now, what does null means? It means nothing. Simple as that, okay? So sometimes you might want to set up or set up a variable as null because simply you don't want to assign a value to it at all, okay? So just keep in mind that null equals to nothing. And sometimes you will use it when you're coding on your variables. Now, we're going to get into variables in our next chapters. So this will be a little bit more clear for you. But just for now, I just want you to know that undefined and null are two data types that you will be using in JavaScript, and they are primitive types. Okay? So just keep in mind that for now. So that was the last data type that we were taking a look into today's episode. Remember, primitive types are strings, numbers, big int, which we didn't look at today, Boolean, undefined, null, and symbol. Now, object data types, these are more complex data types, and these data types will be teach in future lessons, okay? But for now, you have a clear, I hope that you have a clear understanding in primitive data types that you are going to be taking a look into JavaScript. And in the next couple of chapters, I will be explaining how to use these primitive data types. It'll be fun, and I hope that you have learned a lot in today's chapter. Remember, if you are still with doubts and you have questions, and I'm sure you will, just drop them in the comment section below and I will reply as soon as I can. Okay, so that was it for today's episode, everybody. Those are the primitive data types. I hope that this was clear. I hope that everything has made sense to you so far. Remember, don't get frustrated for begin, symbol, or objects because we will be taking a look at them later on in this course, okay? That was it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. And remember that you can always ask Lixi. Bye, everyone, and see you again in the next episode.